to the Lowdown Mortgage Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the evolving originator. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Bam! And joining me today is someone who, when I first talked with him, he said he had to run because he was busy calling leads and would probably be calling them until like 9 o'clock that night. He's built his business through focused hustle by being intentional about the relationships that he has and consistently doing the small things well over a long period of time. Aaron Brown, I want to welcome you to the Lowdown.
Thank you, Connor. I'm excited to get down on the lowdown today.
Hey, absolutely, man. Well, I'm excited to have you. I know over the last, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years, we've kind of kept in touch and have had some conversations along the way. And it's always exciting to call someone who's in the middle of growing their business and are working their butt off, and like just to hear some of the things that you're doing. It's always really cool. So I always enjoy our interactions. But as we were kind of leading up and preparing for this episode. As we were talking, you mentioned that you didn't come into this business with some big grand master plan, but instead, you built it by staying close to people and sort of learning as you went and kind of being in the right rooms. Looking back, what kept you from kind of giving up and throwing your hands up during those early years when progress felt slower than expected?
Yeah, no, definitely a great question. I always make the joke, I don't think anybody chooses to be an LO, right? Like as a child, I was like, you know what, I want to be a heart surgeon, which is so random, but it was just my goal, right? And here I am, not as a heart surgeon, although my handwriting probably fool you. You probably think I am a doctor. Lone doctor, I guess to say. My aunt mentioned, through just my personality traits and studying finance and everything, she's like, you'd probably make a really good LO. And I was like, okay, now I realize she does not probably love me because nobody says, hey, get into this industry, right? Like there's got to be some underlying thing. But she was doing it for 20 plus years at the time and kind of opened my eyes to everything. And, starting off as a broker where like, you're hunting for leads and trying to make anything shake. And there's such a steep learning curve. It's like, how to learn the programs and products, right? And really mastering getting like that niche. And then how to get agents and win them over and really build relationships and not be like that LO that they make jokes about, like, oh, it's update Tuesday, I'm going to get that call. So there was many times where I questioned, should I be doing this or is this right for me? I think what sealed the deal was I made it to a closing, and when I got there, it was a mother and her son, right? And the son was dressed to the nines, like that court clothing, right? And he was like 9 years old. So he is dressed up, she's dressed, makeup and everything. And I was like, y'all look amazing. And they're like, of course, I want to show my son how to act and how to dress because we're the first people in our entire family to purchase a home. And, it was not an easy process. I had to help with credit. I had to run several estimates just to make sure that budget fit right for them. It really opened my eyes that what we do is so impactful. People see us as doctors, as lawyers, as that staple in the industry that's going to really make or break them. As you progress in the career, you realize that you're more of like a financial advisor because most people's wealth is through their property ownership, right? So end of day, once you realize that value and how you can perfect that loan process and give it to somebody, you're going to have bad days, but once you master it and every day is not a learning curve and you pass that curve, the rewards are really there and you get reminded every day from your clients appreciation.
Yeah, and so I mean that's a great story, by the way. I absolutely love that. I'm just picturing the 9-year-old in the suit, and like what a moment for that family, and to be able to be there for that, that's got to be special. But I know as you grow and into this business, because there really isn't this great training manual for becoming a loan officer. There's a bit of a confidence gap that tends to happen for people where they just don't necessarily feel perfectly confident in what it is they're doing day to day. Um, there's a bit of a confidence gap, and so I know that you mentioned that you struggled with that maybe early on. What was it there? Was there a moment where you started trusting your judgment outside of the noise and really just kind of getting into the groove of things?
I mean, I think In all reality, again, it's having faith in yourself and faith in the process and what you create, because you can go and buy a home with five different loan officers, right? And they're each going to have their own processes and things. I think once you get past the learning curve and have a great team and really start being more intentional with what you do every single day and not just reactional, I think that curve happens, and at that point, that confidence kind of builds up into it. Really hitting that, I don't know, like that point in your career. It might take some time, some it might take 6 months, some 3 years. Even being in the industry for 5 or 6 years, they're like, you're still new to the industry. And you realize that everyone knows everyone and the average age is 20 plus. And then you start kind of comparing yourself, like I hit great numbers. And then I look at other people that do better than me and I'm like, man, what are they doing to outshine me? But you don't know what's happening behind the scenes, right? So go to find out they were handed builder accounts, and management gave them all these, I don't know, opportunities to take, and I'm sitting here grinding it out from square one to square 10. But really, it's just, I don't know, having that faith and just kind of going with your. I guess the best way to put it is with what you can make happen, and then supplementing your education and delegating to have everybody else kind of fit their roles.
Yeah, well, I love the call out that you make about just like the comparison trap because totally right. Like there might be circumstances behind the scenes that you're unaware of where there's leveraged opportunities or some sort of, unique scenario happening for that other originator that, it's kind of an unfair comparison. And so really just got to stay in your own lane. So as you've grown as an originator, like do you seek out those relationships and with people that can bring value to you, or how intentional are you about just sort of getting in the right rooms and being around the right people?
Oh man, that's a great one. I mean, one of the most impactful experiences I've had is as an LO, first couple of years, you really need all the business you can get, right? So it's not just the hustle and the grind, but maybe not necessarily doing things you don't want to do, but working with people that you may not align with, whether their lead base is, not great leads to where they don't want to be spoken to, or maybe all of them need credit help and you're just like this credit counselor instead of an actual LO just helping with that. So getting to that point in my career where I was able to like fire agents, which was not easy, but working with people I wanted to work with, and the clientele that I wanted. But I think it's also important to leverage what your partnerships and relationships are. I think a lot of my growth recently has been talking to agents and saying, who do I need to know? Who can you introduce me to? And when you establish those like just really, really impactful relationships with agents, I mean, they're almost excited. There's been so many times I visit them at the office and they walk by an agent and like, Aaron, you gotta meet, John. John, have you seen Aaron yet? And you just see their facial expressions just light up at the excitement, because it's like I can actually give back and help Aaron in this instance. So when you find those relationships and you build them, and you almost have like cheerleaders and past clients and with agents and builders, and however you're growing, right? Like whatever your sector is of this industry. But I try to be in the right rooms with the right people, but also not always working, right? Like spending that time with my partners and enjoying the off season, so to say, and not being that Tuesday update call and I'm just so transactional that they're like kind of regretting even doing business. I really do try to have those relationships that they're over at my house barbecue and celebrating birthdays than just closing transactions.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I've heard it been said before that you haven't really made it as a loan officer until you fired your first agent. And I think what that really means is once you're able to be selective about the people that you do business with, you now have officially have enough business, right? Like you can now kind of stop the grind and say, let me slow down, be a little bit more intentional, curate this group of business partners that I'm working with, and find who are the people I add the most value to, who reciprocate that value, and who can I just enjoy working with. Because at the end of the day, the work is hard, and so if you can find people to work with that
Hmm.
you'll enjoy that time, that's invaluable. And so I know there was a time in your business where things plateaued a little bit and you eventually needed to like make a change to kind of break through that plateau. What was it that you realized that was kind of causing that plateau in your business and how did you change that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we all plateau in general. You and I were talking the other day about like I like to call it, right. You know, you got the 10-foot view and then the 50,000 foot view, right? And it's like almost re-engineering your entire structure from getting that first call to closing. And it's like, okay, how can I take on 100 more closings this year? You know, what do I need to put into place? And if I did get 100 right now, like how quickly would I fail? So you have to think ahead. You know, if you're trying to grow, you need to hire now before the market picks up, right? You need to have the CRM in place. You need to really, you know, leverage your team and that perfect process, because if not, then you're going to lose business even though you're trying to grow into, you know, this I don't know, like perfect well-oiled machine, right? So I think one of my biggest things is I never, it's a combination of being emotional and transactional early on. Is like, I didn't want a single deal to die. So I would ride that thing to the grave. And it helps because now I know my guidelines real well and I can go toe to toe with an underwriter just saying, no, you know, this is how we can make it work. Here's the gray area. Here's the guide. Here's how I've done it in the past. And they're like, okay, you know, like can't argue with that. Right. So one of my biggest things was just spending a lot of time on deals that maybe shouldn't have closed or that are very time consuming. So think DPAs, payment assistance, credit help, agents that had a lot of really not great quality leads and you're trying to just help them get a paycheck. So I'm using my resources to spend hours trying to restructure it to get, you know, an approval. I'm wasting my team's resources of time to get it in, several underwrites, processing, having to go through all these hoops. Once I did that and it's like, okay, I could have closed 5 more loans in that time frame of just doing that one. You know, I want to help people, but I can't want it for them. So I think it's leveraging your time and resources to be efficient and not be on the struggle bus of just trying to get one thing closed at the sacrifice of others.
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly been a theme that's come up a lot recently on some of these episodes. It's just this boundaries, right? And kind of setting boundaries. A lot of people are afraid to do it because they don't want to say no to that potential next lead. But what I'm finding is just a pattern is that the loan officers that have set boundaries in their business, what they will or won't work on, even the hours that they will or won't work, and just say, hey, I don't work past 7 o'clock, for example, right? Like texting me at 9 p.m. is a non-starter for me. I think when people start to set those boundaries, they actually see their business increase a little bit. They're not burnt out and, they're getting, I guess, respect in return. I guess on that subject of boundaries, like what do you consider to be some of the most important boundaries for a loan officer to set in their business?
I mean, I prided myself, right? I was so readily available, you know, and at the sacrifice of my time, my family's time, really getting to that point of burnout. And I thought that that's what would earn me business was like, hey, you know, I'm going to dedicate all my hours. I'm always available, nights, weekends. And then you get into this thing where it's like, you don't have time for yourself or you're really selling your family short, live to work, right? I mean, we love what we do and it pays great, but it shouldn't be your livelihood to where you're dying and you're like, man, I coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? At this point, I can't enjoy that time that I neglected with my loved ones. So it was kind of difficult, and the coaching aspect of getting that and realizing my worth and value. People don't like me or use me because it's like, oh, Aaron will answer any time. They like and use me because of just what I can provide for them through the start and end of the process, from communication to just knowing what I'm doing and making sure we're going to make it to the closing table and not getting a letter that we can't cash, right? So I think you're 100% right. It took a lot because I'm a controlling person and I wanted to like not relinquish that. But once I did it, I think the best way to do that is just communicate it on the front end to your partners. If you're not available on Sundays, let everybody know that and they'll respect it. And then when you start kind of not giving them that push of, hey, I need this, and you're not, and you're like, hey, this is like my non-negotiables. I think they do value your time, And instead of them say calling you at 9:30 at night, they'll get that call in at 8 because they know when your scheduling is. So I think it's not being afraid to do that, but doing it on the front end, letting them know. I mean, I over communicate if I'm going out of town or if I'm not going to be available, if I'm hiking and I have no signal whatsoever and there's no way to reach me. Hey, I'll get back to your call, but I may miss you for an hour or two. Like things are still going to be fine. And I think that they earn that respect more than want it, knowing that
Yeah.
your time has that value, and it's not like they can call you and really bother you whenever they want.
Right. Well, and the opposite of that is, let's say you don't communicate it and they call you at 9 and you don't answer, and then they're wondering like, well, why is this guy not answering? Like, he told me he's always available, right? so
Yeah,
so
that's
yeah,
what
I
I'm saying.
think, to make yourself clear on the front end, people will respect those boundaries if you set them, but if you don't, then they start to wonder why you have boundaries if you didn't ever communicate them in the first place. So anyway, now I know you don't run like a rigid like script on your day to day. Like, how do you decide what deserves kind of your just attention, or how do you prioritize what you're going to do on any given day?
I mean, until recently, maybe the last year, I was, that firefighter. Like whatever was screaming the loudest, I would go and do it. And it took quite a bit to delegate more, have trust in my team for their task to handle it, and not just see something come up. And we all get that thought because we're all kind of like controlling of our system, right? Like you're the LO, not the LOA, you're not the processor, so you know how you want things to be done, and you're like, if you want it done right, I got to do it myself. If you always have that mentality, you'll never be able to grow and you will burn out. It's going to
Yeah.
happen because you're trying to do everything at once. And it's also taken away and diminishing like your team's value. If you're doing everything, what does that look like to them? Wow, I'm not capable of doing this. So it's kind of a two-sided sword of you burning yourself out. You're lighting it that wick on either end is what's happening. And it's gonna burn out. So I think I started really mastering my schedule, but not to the T because you try it for so many times and it's like from this hour to this hour I'm going to do this and alarms are going off and you have this one task you got to finish. It literally takes 2 more minutes. Are you going to just stop and then have to like get that gear grinding again to finish it? That's what they want you to think, but it's not efficient. So I think setting greater time blocking of saying, okay, for these 2 hours, I'm going to prospect, pre-planning for it really helps, and being intentional with that time. I used to drive myself crazy because I would feel like I wasn't successful at the end of each day. But once you have a to-do list and time frames that you're going to do things and just set goals, you can hang up the headphones and go and enjoy time with the family, knowing that you've accomplished these things and setting realistic milestones. So that's what's really helped me is having a daily schedule and regimen, but just not so, prison time of this time to this time, having more of a gap and then having, I don't know, a little bit more guidance through that time.
I love that, man. Like, we all need balance, right? And if it's just like go, go, go all day long, there's no gap in the middle, there's no like taking a breath, right?
Yeah.
Then yeah, I mean, it can be a long day that way. So for anybody who's feeling like the pressure to grow really fast, I mean, this industry, let's call it what it is. We glorify growth, we glorify volume and production. So I know there's a lot of pressure that loan officers feel to like up the ante every year and be, better than the last year. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's tough. So what's one thing that you feel like a loan officer should slow down and just get right early instead of rushing past for the sake of growing their business as fast as possible?
Man, that's a hard question to answer because I don't really have just one. I think there's several different factors that are super essential. I think mastering your CRM is something that I've switched companies in the past, and when you got to like stop and restart that train, it really takes away from 6 months usually takes of just your growth, right? Having a CRM, whether it's an AI and it's smart and it's doing responses and really like robust things in the background, or at least you can't improve on things you don't track. So tracking where your leads are coming from, really mastering just the loan process, right? Like that perfect process of introducing your team, giving good pre-approvals, really reviewing. Depends on where you're at in your career, right? So I think the initial thing is mastering the loan programs because we burn to learn in this industry. Like you're gonna make a mistake that's gonna cost you, and it may never happen again. But if you don't really know what you're doing, I mean, you can only blame the underwriter, right? So many times, like, oh, waiting on the underwriter. It's like, yeah, I heard that one. And that's a common excuse, right? So learning your programs, finding your niche, and just every day, like trying to improve 1% on that. Next, mastering that CRM, just having your past clientele be big advocates for you as well. I think so many LOs just neglect that. And I mean, if you've closed, over your early career 300 400 clients and you can start converting that, then now when there's slow seasons, I mean, you have an entire database that you can just nurture and work, and that's not going to cost you money for Zillow leads, right? And that's not going to take away from you trying to get 50 agents when you have 50 clients that already had that experience with you and you know what you're getting into. So those would be probably the two biggest things that I
Yeah.
think would really help people to slow down, is just mastering both of those, and then everything else kind of comes into play.
Yeah, I love that, man. Like I've heard it before, the advice that was given is in terms of like mastering the guidelines and knowing everything, also knowing what your competition offers and being able to be an expert on who else is doing what programs in the market so that you can always be just that like reliable source of information. So I think those are all great call outs. Now, Aaron, as you sort of think about the next phase of your business. All right. So, Aaron, as you kind of think about the next phase of your business, what are you focused on kind of protecting so you don't lose the things that have been working for you in the first place? Like, what are the things that you want to protect, and then where are you looking for growth skill wise?
Yeah, so I'm with coaching, with just being in the industry and different outlets. You meet a lot of different LOs and kind of where they're at in the entire scheme of things, and some of them use a lot of AI or their team to do everything. I think I was listening to one. It was almost like a podcast, right? And it was with Denise Donahue. I worked with her in the past company, and she closes, I mean, huge volume, right? She's one of the top in the entire industry. And she was just making a comment, and it was just such an interesting comment because she's like, everybody mentions, in the process, 5-star reviews. Denise was amazing. We love Denise. Denise, I have no idea who these people are. Like my team did everything, I just the brand, I'm just the face. And they're all thanking me, and I just go to the team and I'm like, hey, you guys did a great job, but I'm closing, 50, 80, 100 clients a month, whatever it is. They all think it's Denise. So I think the biggest thing is building a brand that stands out and shines. That is kind of what I'm working on now. I think another important thing is being involved throughout the process, like them knowing who I am, having those conversations. Like my team really handling the back office things, but I'm still having those connections with them, right? I'm going over their investment strategies for the future. I'm going over their 401k, their retirement, their mortgage limits, and kind of explaining to them, hey, we don't want to be house poor. Like I know that this is our limit to qualify for, but doesn't mean we need to buy a home at this point, right? And just being real with them, treating them like, your mother and your father and your son, and just like the family, not like a paycheck.
Yeah.
I hope I make it to a point where I could be like Denise and have a whole team doing everything and getting those 5-star reviews without having a finger involved. But I think it takes away from us and what we can do. So it's having the legacy, but still managing it from the outside and knowing what's going on. I think one of the biggest insults is realtors calling and you're like, who, what client? Like we got a contract, I think it's almost insulting. So not getting so AI or team oriented to where I'm just sitting in the back and watching it go down, but still being a part of the action, and making sure that what I'm building out is how I really want it to be and that it aligns with my.
Yeah. What part of the process would you say you would want to have absolute ownership of in that scenario then? Like, where do you want to make sure you're always involved?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like basically we call it like the loan selection meeting, right? So application comes in, the team's getting docs in, getting it all set up and structuring it, but I'm having that call with them, whether it's the phone or Zoom, and going through the options with them and making sure that it fits their budget and their needs and holding them accountable to that. I think that's really important. You can't have a he said, she said. And then at that point, connecting them like a warm connection with the agent so they realize that we are a trifecta, with them being in the center of it and we are a pyramid, all working towards their greater goal. But if they tell me, hey, I don't want a payment above 2,500 and this home is going to put them at 2,600, I need to have that firm talk with them because it's like, this is not aligning with what you told me before. And the last thing I want to hear is we close and they're either house poor, they foreclose, they are late on mortgages because they overcommitted and I wasn't there really like reeling them back in. Because buying a home is exciting, you want the best and the most flashiest and all these amenities. It's kind of a big deal, inviting friends over and you got the nicest house on the block. But at what point does it align with what we initially agreed to? It's
Yeah,
a it's a two-sided road.
do you run into that scenario often, like the eyes are bigger than my stomach sort of feeling, where they see the dream home, but it's just out of reach from what you talked about, and how does that conversation go? I mean, are they grateful that you had it, or are they kind of like, Aaron, man, you're killing me, dude? Like, like what's usually the feedback you get there?
Yeah, I mean, it's more common than not, honestly, because I'll give somebody an initial pre-approval, and with how rates have been and just the cost of living and everything, like we qualify somebody pre-taxed, right? So you got to factor that in as well, right? Like, where is that going to come from? They have bills, they have expenses. My wife actually works for, like, she is a lender for a manufactured home company. And I hear her on some of the calls, because when she's working from home and I'm at home office and she's going through their monthly expenses with them. And I'm like, wow, that's how everyone should be. Not just, yeah, we got a max debt to income, we can go up to 7%. This is how much home that is. Let's just max you out like that. That's not doing them a service. So a lot of times they will come back and say, hey, Aaron, we thought our budget would be 250,000 for a home. That's the monthly payment. But to really get the home that we want at 280. I kind of do the devil's advocate of like, hey, I agree because for one, in a couple of years, if you do need to upgrade on your home, it's going to be more expensive. You have cost to sell, cost to purchase. But simultaneously, I want them to understand that they made that choice. I don't want it to be afterwards them feeling some type of way because they bought a home and now they're worrying about, oh, I didn't think about utilities and other expenses. I want to kind of get their buy-in of, do you have extra income coming in? Is there something that I'm missing? Do you have other bills that we can pay off just to look at your total sum of it? And once they have that buy-in and they're good with it, I'm good. But when they have that realization, like, no, we really can't probably afford 285, right? In this market, in these rates. So I'm like, okay, well, let's keep looking at 250 or let's think outside of the box and see if there's something else that would allow us to push that. So it's not really like, if I can qualify for it, it's like, hey, can I afford
Yeah, well, I love that because it reminds me of when I bought my house in 2008, and at the time was making $40,000 salary with, potential of commission, recruiting nurses to hospitals. My wife was a school teacher, but we knew she wasn't going to continue teaching because she was pregnant with her first child, and like, that was going to be the end of being a teacher. So, we qualified for this huge amount of money, but in the back of our minds, we're like, there's no way we could afford that. And I'm really glad that our loan officer at the time and our realtor had, very honest conversations with us to help us realize, yeah, that's like, you don't want to go for the whole thing. Like, yeah, it might be what you qualify for, but is that what you can really afford? And so, long story short, we ended up in a great scenario and still live in the house to this day, in fact. So, but I'm glad that we didn't have someone that just sort of pushed us towards what we were pre-approved for,
it?
and then find out maybe 2 years later, because man, those next 2 years were hard, I'll tell you that. But just in the country as a whole, where we were going, man, I don't know if we can even keep this house. So gratefully we never ran into that situation. So Aaron, as we kind of wrap up here, kind of, I guess, last question, what advice would you give someone who is on like the doorstep of getting into a consistent 5, 6, 8 loans a month sort of level? What do they need to do next to make sure that they can stay on a consistent basis across that production versus kind of being on the up and down roller coaster of production that you see so often when people are starting to experience real growth in their business?
Yeah, no, I think just reeling everything back in, right? Once you get the perfect loan process done from start to finish, so like you're giving that wow effect and creating raving fans of your database, right? After you get that, leveraging a CRM to make sure that no lead goes unturned and you're really working it. And now you're like, okay, Aaron, what do I do? I mean, I'm twiddling my thumbs. I don't have a lot of leads coming in. At that point, that's when you structure your schedule. And you need to be rigorous with that schedule and have non negotiables and saying, I'm going to be prospecting from this time to this time and not being afraid to go out and meet with agents and really just explore the uncomfortable zone, right? Once you get comfortable with the uncomfortable and you're in that room and you're really working everything and all like that, I would say that fake it till you make it, that energy really does come to life and people get drawn to you and attracted to you. So when the market shrinks, when it expands, I think just keeping to a schedule and taking the steps every single day where you're making, it doesn't have to be the core where you're making 500 calls a day and really just overwhelming yourself, but being intentional with your time every single day, never stopping to learn, and really going after those whales, those people that you think you'll never have a chance with, because if you land one or two of them, that could literally make or break your entire.
Yeah, I love that, man. That I just got that little nugget out of this book, The Psychology of Money. You the more swings you take, the more opportunities you get. You can fail 100 times, or 98 times out of 100, but it's those two wins that might mean everything for you. And so I love that. Be bold, go after it, and hope for the best. Aaron, I
Yeah,
just appreciate this conversation. Thank you for being on the lowdown and kind of sharing your insights and wisdom with the listeners today. And man, I just wish you nothing but the best.
I appreciate that, Connor. I really do. Thank you for the invite. I'm looking forward to seeing your growth and mine as well. And cheers to the future because I know it's going to be a blessing.
Absolutely. Thank you.